Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand. Jessop's Journal is a collection of powerful, positive, and inspirational stories. It's time for Jessop's Journal.
Hi, I'm Doug Jessop. Welcome to this episode of Jessop's Journal, where we share powerful, positive, and inspirational stories and music right here on TV, as well as online at jessopsjournal.com. Our first guest today makes a powerful impression as a custom clothier.
It was a lot of learning from a lot of different people and learning from a lot of tailors and asking a lot of questions and time and questions.
Curtis Booker shares a positive story of following a dream.
Technically, I got hired as a board operator.
Okay.
And I would run like the weekend programming. I would come in at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, run weekend programming, come back on a Sunday morning at 6, be there to run the Casey Kasem Top 40.
In this week's The Caring Stories, we feature an inspirational group by the name of Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
And I told them from the very beginning, don't worry, because one day you're going to have a bunk bed, you're going to have your own room, and you're going to share it with your sister. And they finally got it, and I was like, see, your dreams came true.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace is an all-volunteer organization that believes that all children deserve a safe, comfortable place to lay their heads. In between, musical guest Makisi Music entertains us.
Down under and stones, his current will shake me, his love will embrace me, his promise will never forsake me. Dear Lord, before I go, find me under and stones.
Of course, don't forget one of my favorites, Objects with Stories are Treasures Remembered.
This is a painting whose subject most people will recognize if you're from one of the major world religions.
Yeah.
This is the flight into Egypt. You have Mary, you have the Christ child, and you have Joseph, who have just fled Bethlehem in order to avoid being killed by Herod's troops.
But first, Adam Malmberg. In this episode of Jessop's Journal, I get to interview my custom tailor.
Hey Doug, how are you doing?
Excellent.
Great to see you. Looking sharp.
Thanks. I always love my custom suits.
Good.
Thanks for
Looking
coming
great.
on Jessop's Journal today.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Sign in, please. Full disclosure, Adam is my tailor, okay? My personal tailor. I love what this guy does, okay? I'm wearing a shirt that I designed with you. I wear the suit. Measurements were phenomenal, impeccable. How in the world did you get into being a tailor?
It wasn't something that I'd done in the past, and I had a friend that we both wanted to start something, and we were actually out on a backpacking trip down in southern Utah, and we were just talking about life and what we wanted out of life and kind of what our passions were and things like that. And Taylor Cooperative was born out of that.
What's the history of this building, do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool. This building is over 100 years old. It was an old farmer's market, and if you actually go out back, there's a bunch of old railroad ties, and they would load produce through here because it was an old farmer's market. The floors have a ton of personality. They still have paint splatter from when this was an art space, and they've got scratches, and yeah, it's been a cool building. I feel really fortunate to be able to be here.
So in other words,
cool.
if we move the furniture and we scratch the floor, everything's
Not a
okay.
big deal.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
my kind of place, right?
Yeah.
Is there kind of a secret sauce that you've, through your experience, been able to bring to here running Taylor Cooperative?
First off, it's all about execution. Ideas are a dime a dozen. I'm an idea man, and so it's one of those things that it's all about how you do it. It's all about execution.
What kind of job did your dad have?
He was an aircraft mechanic up at the Air National Guard. Growing up, there was lots of fixing things and tinkering around with things, and I got to learn a lot from him, which was really fun.
So tell me about your mom.
My mom actually has MS, and she was diagnosed when I was maybe 2.
Really?
And so it's been a lifelong disease for my mother. And it's my dad is a saint, and he's one of the nicest people, and he's been taking care of my mom and taking really good care of her. So yeah.
What is MS?
Yeah, MS is multiple sclerosis, and it's when your nervous system is attacking your, when your immune system is attacking your nervous system. And so it's kind of a degenerative disease, and unfortunately there's no cure for it. And it's, it affects different people differently, and it's one of those things that it's a tough disease. It's really, really tough for anyone who has it. So
How is having a mom that's got this, this disease impacted the way you deal with people?
Yeah, it definitely has affected me a lot, but it's, I would say it's one of those things that a lot more empathy for people and understanding. And I think the other piece is how important your health is and how to not take that for granted.
So, who believed in you before you believed in you?
Yeah, I would say that was my dad. When I actually started my first business, he was, so it was actually shave ice and ice cream inside of pineapples.
How old were you?
I was, 21? I was just in college, and I wanted to do something, like I always wanted to start my own thing and do something cool like that. I think my dad was really nervous for me to start something up. And, but he was always very supportive, and he let me use the garage and, store everything. He helped me build everything, and so it was pretty cool.
So tell me about your love of sailing.
Yeah, sailing is something I actually kind of stumbled into, and one of the best secrets here in Salt Lake is the Great Salt Lake. It's a beautiful, beautiful lake, and I love sailing out there, and it's been a hobby of mine for the last few years. So
now, I interviewed you before when we were making my custom suits, and number one, you did impeccable. Who taught you how to do the measurements and all that stuff? Because you guys all have all those funky little machines, and you have this little weird thing that you put on my shoulder and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't just one person. It was a lot of learning from a lot of different people, and learning from a lot of tailors, and asking a lot of questions, and time and questions. When I started this up, I actually had no idea that I had this long history of tailoring. So my great-great-grandparents were tailors and bag makers in Switzerland, and they all came over here, and this was kind of how they got their start here in America, which is really cool. So it was a cool thing to be part of that long line of heritage with that. So.
It's no secret, I love the work that you guys do. Owning a company like this would be a dangerous thing for me, because it's like, oh my gosh, I need to go get another closet just to put stuff in. So do you remember the first suit that you had made here that you're going, okay, I'm the owner of Taylor Cooperative, I can get anything I want? What'd you make?
I wanted to get actually a staple piece, and so I wanted something that I could just wear and kind of put through the ringer, and it was a navy suit. And looking back to that, it's been pretty fun to have that as a piece there. The time waiting for it to get made, and for the tailors to put everything together, and you're so ready for it, and then the moment it comes in, you're just so excited, and that's honestly that's the reason why we're doing this. Is it's just it's such a cool fun, and that's the reason we started this, is we wanted to bring that experience to people, and it's a really cool piece to be able to have your own custom tailored clothing.
Well, the unveiling, the suspense, it's just okay.
We let everyone kind of design their own thing and have a little bit of creative license on what they're making, and so it's cool to be part of something that's that creative and that artistic.
Suits are usually, let's get real, the domain of men.
Yep.
But I've noticed when I've been in here a couple times, there are women that are getting clothing made.
Yep.
How in the world did you get into that side, and why?
What's important is to be able to serve not just men and women, but we try to keep it so it's more open, and so we do more androgynous fits, we do more masculine, we do more feminine fits, things like that. So we try to keep it a really welcoming and safe space for a lot of people, because if someone wants something to represent the way they feel, it's really cool to be part of that. Particularly more feminine fits, it's a challenge, and so it's most clothiers don't ever go into and
the
go
only
down
one
that
I
road.
know of,
Yeah, so they don't go down that road, and so it's been cool developing out patterns and making that a big piece of our business, because I feel like it is such an important thing for someone to have something that fits them well, and suits are a powerful thing. So.
And family's a powerful thing. So
absolutely.
What's your mom and dad think of what you're doing?
They're proud. Yeah.
I wonder what the Brightlings would think of their great-great
Yeah,
grandson.
that'd be cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming on.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
One of my favorite inspirational quotes is from Audrey Hepburn. She said, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." Over the years, I've been able to do some pretty incredible stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These stories deserve to be seen again, so I'm opening up the vault, and it's a series called The Caring Stories.
Line up those 3 holes.
It's handmade. When they brought it, it actually came with the mattresses and it came with the comforters and the sheets.
Sarah Ashworth is a single mom. She couldn't afford a bed for her daughters.
And I told them from the very beginning, don't worry, because one day you're going to have a bunk bed, you're going to have your own room, and you're going to share it with your sister. And they finally got it, and I was like, see, your dreams came true.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace is an all-volunteer organization that believes that all children deserve a safe, comfortable place to lay their heads. Jay Tucker is the co-chapter president of the Syracuse chapter.
In the last year and a half, we've built over 200 beds. We've delivered those beds to children who are sleeping on the floor, they're sleeping on the couch.
It was time to roll up my sleeves and help.
We start with raw lumber. We cut them to length and they go over to sanding. From there it goes to our tapping stations. There it goes to the drill presses. From there, one set of boards goes over to the headboard station. The other goes over to the longer board station where we build the side rails and the safety rails. From there, they're stained with vinegar and steel wool mixture. Once they're dried, the headboards are all branded and drilled for countersinking for the lag bolt. From there, they go to children's homes right here in Utah.
What's sleep in heavenly peace mean to you?
Adult problems aren't kids' problems. And these kids are in positions that they have zero control over. Allowing them to have a bed where they can sleep in heavenly peace and get a good night's sleep, that's what that means to me.
Thank you so much for the beds.
These stories deserve to be told. These are the caring stories. Everyone has a story. Sometimes those stories are told through music. It's time for Jessop's Jukebox with makisi music. These guys, they're on fire right here at Bonfire. It's makisi.
Disregard all this
Yes, I'm known as the TV hat guy. And yeah, I've got lots of hats, but this one makes a statement. It's called the Trail Boss. Our next guest is a fellow broadcaster that you've heard on radio, and now he's on TV, Mr. Curtis Booker. Tell me what it was like to grow up in Detroit.
Growing up in Detroit was fun, late 80s, 90s. I just remember being able to hang out with my friends, riding bikes throughout the neighborhood, going to school. I mean, everything from what I remember growing up in Detroit was just always fun.
Yeah. It's not quite the same anymore?
It's a little different now. The city is going through a resurgence. Downtown Detroit is definitely going through a resurgence. A lot of tech companies are coming.
Oh, okay.
All the sports teams are downtown. So downtown Detroit has definitely made a resurgence. As far as the city, still got some work to do. But
So-
I love my hometown. I will never, disown it.
There you go. So what did your dad do?
So my dad worked for the Big Three. He worked for Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, surprise, Detroit, working for an automaker, right?
Yeah.
So what did your parents think when you're saying, hey, I want to be a disc jockey?
Originally, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't decide I wanted to be in radio until I was almost through high school.
Okay.
I always had a love for music.
So what kind of music did your parents listen to when you were growing up?
It varied for the most part. When I remember being in the car, it was like, and so take into account, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, so I would always hear like 70s music, like Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, Four Tops, Temptations, that type of stuff is what I remember playing in the car. But as time progressed, they kind of got into more of like the current music that I was listening to and my sister was listening to. So it varied, but for the most part, obviously being from Detroit, a lot of Motown.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, it's the motherland, right?
Yep, exactly.
So how old were you when you started your first radio gig?
20 years old. This was back home in Detroit. I was doing an internship, and technically I got hired as a board operator.
Okay.
And I would run like the weekend programming. I would come in at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, run weekend programming, come back on a Sunday morning at 6, be there to run the Casey Kasem Top 40. So I did that when I was 20. My first full-time gig away from home, I was 21. That was in the fall of 2000, and that's when I made the move to Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Okay, now I got to ask. A kid from Detroit, okay,
I always get this.
going all the way to Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
What kind of culture shock did you have?
It wasn't, there was definitely a culture shock because I knew about the LDS culture, but I didn't know a lot about it. So getting there, I would see missionaries on their bikes, and I had friends who were LDS, and they would really explain things to me like, this is the way it is, and I respected it. Other than that, it was just getting used to a small town.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up in a major city and you're used to that, you're used to being able to go to any mall you want. You're used to different restaurants. You're used to 4-lane highways, and you get somewhere and it's only 2 lanes, or there's only one mall, or there's only one supermarket. So just the quality of life type of stuff was probably the biggest adjustment.
A lot of the time, having been in radio myself as well, there's this illusion that people have of what you look like.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever experienced that? Tell me a story.
So early on, even up until recently, I'm about 5'7", pretty short. I always would get, when I would go out to remotes and events, I thought you were a tall white guy. I would get that all the time. I would meet listeners and they go, "You're Booker? I thought you were a tall white guy." I'm like, "Nope, I'm a short black guy."
Yeah. Okay, so you were on radio for 20 years. Now you're doing a little bit of the TV side.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference? Is there something that you have been surprised by on the TV side?
Probably the biggest thing would be just what you see in front of the camera isn't always what you really get.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Like I never knew that news producers you spend 8 or 9 hours putting together a half-hour show. I would have never guessed that. When I was talking to our news director, Todd, about being an associate producer and then eventually a news producer, and I always wonder, like, okay, why do I have to be here for 8 hours? And then when I started to do it, it's like, oh, wow, this really can take all day to put a half-hour newscast together. So I think the biggest thing is just seeing all the behind the scenes and with the producers, directors, floor crew. There's so many things to go into that 28-minute newscast that I never knew and viewers never know. So that, I mean, it's been different from radio, but it's been really cool to see because I feel like I'm getting a lot of education now on the news side of media.
One of our underwriters' monikers, hashtags, I guess it is leave your mark. So for you, for Booker, what does leave your mark mean?
If I had to leave my mark, I would say never give up. There's going to be challenges, there's going to be obstacles in life, and if you have a goal, if you have something you want to pursue, those obstacles are going to get in the way. Life's going to get in the way. But if it's something that you want really bad, don't give up. Keep going, keep fighting, keep pushing through it. And eventually you'll get to your goal. It may not happen overnight. It may take a couple years, but eventually you'll get there. And that probably would be my mark. Just never give up. Keep going.
You see me every Sunday in the ABC4 News at 10 p.m. with a positive news feature called Utah Success Stories. A lot of my news stories are a combination of dirty jobs and how it's made. If you're a business owner with an interesting story to tell, put me to work. Now, these stories aren't for everybody. It's got to be a good fit for both sides. Full disclosure, we do charge a fee to cover production costs and social media exposure. For more information, email me at doug@dougjessup.com. Utah Success Stories. Objects with stories are treasures remembered. I'm here with Micah Christensen from Anthony's Fine Art, and so number one, thanks for letting us see all this cool stuff here. We've got a special painting behind here, so tell me a little bit about it.
So this is a painting whose subject most people will recognize if you're from one of the major world religions.
Yeah.
This is the flight into Egypt. You have Mary, you have the Christ child, and you have Joseph, who have just fled Bethlehem in order to avoid being killed by Herod's troops. The artist who did this is Edouard Jérôme Paupignon. He was a French artist. He painted this in 1892, where it showed in the Paris Salon of 1892.
Okay, now that's a big deal.
Now, it is a huge deal. It's something that it's hard for us to comprehend today. And the number of people who went to Paris to see the Paris Salon where this showed was roughly 2.8 to 3 million people.
Wow.
So twice the population. This is at a time when there weren't really movies or radio or television. The mass entertainment of that time was painting, was sculpture, were these major exhibitions. And the exhibition had echoes abroad where this painting, it was one of 2,000 paintings shown at the exhibition, was then reproduced in multiple formats, in books, in postcards, in posters. It hung on people's walls. It had a life well beyond this artist and this work.
So I noticed some geography and these mountains. Do they have any kind of significance?
So this is the Jabal Altar mountain in Egypt. And that's a place today where if you were to look at it, on top of that hill is the Church of the Madonna. And it's to commemorate this moment in the scriptures of the Coptic Egyptians, who are Christian Egyptians, and also of Muslims, the story of Christ coming to Egypt. So if you're an Egyptian Christian, the idea of Christ coming to Egypt, it's a big part of your heritage and your story.
Now, I also noticed that the angels over here, obviously they're not looking at them, they're kind of in the side. But I also know they kind of have this pastel colors, almost like a mauve.
That's right.
Is there any significance on that?
So the 1890s was the era of Art Nouveau, and this color becomes a fashion, this mauve color. And it plays right into the Romanovs, the Russian royal family, who is at this time redecorating the Alexander Palace in St. Petersburg. It's their main residence as the Russian royal family. And they're redecorating it in the style of Art Nouveau, much to the horror of some people who are living at the time. And the most frequented room by the family, the one that's the most precious to them, is called the Mauve Room.
Well, yeah, there you go.
When they saw this painting in the Salon of 1892, it had already been sold to another collector. So they go to Edouard Jérôme Papillon and they ask him to make another painting of a similar subject, which is also Flight into Egypt. And it hung over the chair where they did their knitting, where they did their socializing in the Alexander Palace.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these stories, because the way I look at it, objects with stories are treasures remembered. There's a phrase at my house that says, don't forget to breathe. Well, Clear Nasal Spray helps me breathe better. I think they'll help you too. So come on, you know you want to. Take a deep breath and relax. Thanks for watching this episode of Jessop's Journal. It's my honor to share powerful, positive, and inspirational stories in music right here on TV, as well as worldwide at jessopsjournal.com. Here's the thing I want people to remember. Everyone has a story. Yes, you have a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other. With another entry into Jessop's Journal, I'm Doug Jessop.
Down